still talking while you're introducing. I'm sorry. Thank you, and thanks for the students coming out. This is our 7th meeting on this tour that we're going through, which is which will be 26, and by the time we finish, it'll be almost 200 town hall meetings, just shy of 200 town hall meetings we've had since we were elected. A lot of traveling. By this time next week, we'll be, I think, doing about 2,300 miles of driving and to try and get to all of our districts. So it's good. It's great. We went through last year and we didn't even hardly have a crowd. So I'm glad that everybody showed up, and especially for the students for coming in. This is the last place in the world you could have caught me when I was your age. But I appreciate you guys being here. Make sure you have questions. Do you guys have questions for Karen? I see one head. No? Oh, well, I'm going to call on you, so think of something. I'm probably going to call on you and have you ask a question. Look, it's an honor. It's an absolute honor to serve. It's good to see so many good friends and familiar faces. It's a large district, so we try to get around as much as we can. At the same time, I still got to be in D.C., and I still got to be a husband. I still got to be a father to 5 children. Last night, my wife was sending me pictures, and this morning, my wife was sending me pictures of the kids. It's one thing when I'm in D.C., and I'm away from the family, but it's tougher to me when I'm in the state and I'm still away from the family. I know that sounds maybe crazy to you, but it's like you're this close and you just can't be home. And you guys ever heard that old country song? Was it 6 days on the road and I'm going to make it home, or 6 weeks, or whatever it is? What is that song? 6 days on the road and I'm going to make it home. That's what it feels like. And tonight I'm going to make it home about 10 o'clock tonight, and I'm actually excited about it. The kids will probably be asleep, but I'll still go and kiss them on the forehead. I've got one son that's 11. He won't be. That kid's a night owl like me. He doesn't require a lot of sleep. Anyways, a couple things I want to talk about today is so often in politics, which I'm glad the young people are here. So often in politics, we focus on so many things that we have that separates us, rather than looking at what we have in common. Too often what we do is we bicker and fight in politics, but yet all throughout the rest of the time in our life, we teach respect. We teach each other that you're supposed to respect each other, you're supposed to value somebody's opinion. But in politics, when you don't agree with us, you're an idiot. And anger comes in place. And what we end up doing is we end up running a lot of young people and turning them off from politics rather than turning them on to politics. And so often, the only time we get involved in politics is when you're upset and you're being more reactive than proactive. It's one of those weird things. It's the most important thing probably that we deal with inside the United States. But it's one of the most biggest division between us inside the United States. And we don't pay attention to everything that we can get along on. I mean, for instance, if you look at the person to your right and to your left, do you doubt that they love the country as much as you? And I start almost all my meetings the same way. Does anybody doubt that the person sitting across from you or in front of you loves the country any less or any more than you do? Don't answer that, because I see some really weird looks. The answer to that is no, of course not. You know they love the country as much as you do. And I get to serve with a tremendous amount of great people on both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats. What you see on TV doesn't always represent actually what happens in Washington, D.C. One thing I did is when I went up there, I wanted to make relationships on both sides of the aisle, because one person's opinion could be a great opinion. I may agree with them, but the truth is you still got to have 218 people in the House just to get anything accomplished. Our founding fathers set us up to represent certain groups of people. I represent the 2nd District of Oklahoma. I take our values and I apply that into my decision making in Washington, D.C. But a good friend of mine, Joe Kennedy, represents Boston. I'm not from Boston. He votes wrong all the time, according to me. But I don't doubt that he loves the country as much as I do. He's just representing his constituents. But what do we have in common? What do you have in common with the person you disagree with in politics? What we all have in common is that flag right there that we stood up to just a second ago and pledge allegiance to. I didn't hear one single person stand up and pledge allegiance to a certain individual or a certain party. Did you? We all agree that's the most beautiful flag in the world. We're fixing to start the Summer Olympics. I hate it. when we're on the podium and another flag's above ours. I can't even hardly watch the ceremonies when another national anthem is being played over ours. Does anybody in here feel any different than that? Huh? No. That's what we have in common. Most of us would agree we want the country to be at its best. We want to have a brighter future for the generations coming behind us. We want the country to be secure and be the leader in the world. Why is it that this country, with 6% of the population, is considered the leader of the world? Because we're Americans. When it comes right down to it, we all agree on the love of this country. But when it comes to politics, we bicker and fight. Why? Because you don't agree with me. But go back to, once again, how did our founding fathers set this country up? It set it up that one person couldn't dictate the entire country. Now, we have a president, the White House is trying to. But if it wasn't for the other two branches to hold him in check as much as possible, he would be running rogue. Today, there's going to be a lot of questions. I hope there is. But if you came here just to bellyache and complain, if you came here to throw out I gotcha stuff, this isn't the place for this. This is a place to get answers. I may not know all the answers, and the answer I may give you, you may not like. The truth is, that's okay. Thank the Lord that we can disagree. Thank the Lord there is no political prisons in the United States. Right? Sometimes it's okay to disagree. Agree to disagree. Doesn't mean that you have to take it personal. Doesn't mean that I'm going to take it personal. But we should still be able to respect each other. We should still be able to have a conversation with each other. I disagree with my wife, and she disagrees with me occasionally. I'm sure we're the only married couple that ever has that problem. Right? But we've been married almost 19 years. It'll be 19 years in June. I don't question her love for me. She might question my love for her every now and then, but I don't question her love for me, and what we have in common is our family. So even when we disagree, we still have enough respect for each other to know that it's coming from a good place in our heart, not a selfish place. And that's the same way we should address politics. If you can ask the fundamental question, does that person love the country as much as you do? So let's not turn this into an I got you. Let's not turn it into pointing fingers at each other. Let's turn it into something to allow questions to be answered and have individuals like these young people here today encourage them to stay involved in politics. There isn't one of us to wake up in the morning and say, I cannot wait until I get in an argument. Would you agree with that? But what do we see day in and day out on news outlets? I don't care if you're watching Fox or you're watching CNBC or listening to whatever news outlets that's out there. What do you hear? Do you hear the good stuff? What do you hear? Negative. Negative, negative, negative. There's no wonder there's so many people that have the opportunity to vote inside the United States and they choose not to. We got a group of people here today and maybe we can show them that's a little bit different. Politics and being able to agree to disagree and being able to be involved is a fundamental right that our founding fathers allowed us to do. There was probably a lot of bickering going on in many, many years past this and before this. The difference is we have a 24-hour news cycle that always draws an opinion, and an opinion becomes perception, and perception becomes truth. And the reality is, it's probably only got about that much actual factual truth to it. That's why every week we send out an e-newsletter. Every week. You can sign up for it. It'll tell you every single vote we made, and it'll give you a link to read the entire bill if you want to. Well, I don't have time to read it. If you have time to complain about it, then you should have the time to get the facts behind it too. If you have time to complain about it, then you have time to read it and understand it. Do you understand? That's why we put every single vote we make out there for you, and you can check it. I'm not saying that when you read it, you'll agree with my vote. You may not, but at least you have the information, right? That's why we're out there. I promise you, I have made some mistakes. I've apologized to my wife a lot. I have the flower shop on speed dial. I have pre-made out cards that say I'm sorry and that I love you. You think I'm kidding? I'm dead serious. And I'm okay with it. I'm a big guy. Is anybody in here perfect? I only know one perfect person, and he died and rose again, and we just celebrated that recently. That's the only one that I know. Other than that, we've all made mistakes. But can you admit when you make a mistake? If you can admit you made a mistake, then you can learn. If you want to dig in and say you can't, something's wrong. So I'll stop there. I want to open up for questions. There's plenty of people here. I'd like to start though with one of the kids, if you guys don't mind, and then we'll grow from there. So who wants to go first? Introduce yourself and tell me what grade you're in. Leadership has two things. One, you do more than you say. Every time. Three, when you make a decision, understand that leadership is tough. It's not always popular. It's never going to be popular. It will be popular, or I say take that back. It will be popular sometimes, but there's always people willing to criticize you. Sometimes the people that are willing to criticize you, though, is second guessing the decision that you made, and they weren't willing to make the decision themselves. I'm not saying all the time, I'm just saying sometimes. It's always easy to play second guess once the outcome's been determined. There's always an easier way to do something. That's why there's called debriefing. And there's always a lesson that can be learned. Be willing to learn that. Don't think that you're perfect. You're never going to be perfect. But never be afraid to make a decision. Leadership is about being uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is about growth. You cannot grow being comfortable every day. It's impossible. A leader is someone that's going to commit to something and see it through. The hardest part of any race is when right at the finish line. It's easy to commit to something and not finish it. The leader always finishes. No matter what the task is, the leader gives the word that says they're going to do something. I'm going to do this for 6 years, 6 weeks, or a lifetime, like the commitment to the Lord. The leader is going to see it through. But also, things change. Things move. Circumstances change. And you have to be flexible as a leader to be able to adapt to those circumstances. But never quit. That's the best advice I can give. Okay? Do you have a question too? Yeah, I can read your name tag, but not everybody else in the room can. So you got to introduce yourself, tell me what grade you're in. Are you guys friends? Okay. Just figure that out.
What are your views on the idea of excluding people from the
What do you mean? Like through immigration? Well, we're a nation of immigrants, but we're also a nation of laws. And so if you're going to come to the United States, you need to be willing to abide by our laws and the rules that allow you to become a citizen. If you go around those rules, you're breaking the law. And you forfeit the idea or the ability to be able to be a citizen until you go back to the proper channels. So I don't want to exclude people from coming here. But if you're coming here, it's because you want to be a citizen of the United States. That means you're denouncing where you came from, because part of citizenship and a ceremony, if you ever go to one, is they denounce the country where they came from and they become a citizen of the United States. When you denounce it, you leave their laws behind and you're going to become a United States citizen, you're going to follow our rules and our laws. Part of that, in my opinion, is also understanding our language. The old saying, when in Rome, do as Romans do. If you're going to come to the United States, we don't adapt to you, you adapt to us. And it gets a lot of confusion in there. People take that as saying that, well, we don't want you here. That's not the case. Almost everybody has some type of blood that was an immigrant that came across from a different country. We're not that old of a country to be able to chase our history down and the lineage of where we came from. But we still have rules and everybody has to follow the rules. What else, ma'am? Yes, ma'am. I'm going to come back to y'all. You guys aren't off the hook. I haven't had one single kid, boy, ask a question yet, so you two are on the hook for quick. We can figure out which one's next. Go ahead.
Is there anything being done at the national level to halt the spiraling costs of health and insurance?
Try to get rid of Obamacare. The biggest raise that we've seen going on in our healthcare system is when we increased forced everybody to get health insurance and penalize them if they don't. The objective behind it, I think, is national health care, overall reaching government-ran health care. I have provided health insurance for my employees from day one. Since September of '97, when Chris and I first got in business, we provided health care for our employees. At that time, it cost $78 for full insurance, $250 deductible, $25 copay at the doctor's visit, and a $5 prescription. That insurance now doesn't even exist. It's over $650 is what it cost me around that per employee. It's a $5,000 deductible with an 80-20 percentage. Who know that the prescription is going to cost, and we have to have a supplement insurance to offset the deductible. The insurance is worse, and this whole Obamacare, ACA, whatever you want to call it, affordable health care, which is a joke in itself, that was told that it won't cost the American taxpayers anything, it'd be budget neutral. Now it's going to cost the American taxpayers over $10 trillion over the next 10 years. It's increasing and bankrupting a lot of our Medicaid systems because it's forcing people there. The quality of care and the availability of care has drastically reduced, and at the same time our costs have skyrocketed. But yet we have a guy in the White House that absolutely positively refuses to see any change because it's his signature piece of legislation. Whoever the next president is, they're going to have to address this problem. Regardless if it's a male or a female, this problem will have to be addressed because it's not sustainable where we're at right now. Who's paying for it? Why we have the ego of an individual that's up there, and I'm not just saying that because I didn't support the guy. I'm saying that because it's true. The facts speak for themselves. The problem that we're having is bankrupting all of us. Yes, ma'am.
This is going to kind of go off of Patty's question, but in my geography and history classes, I try to explain to my students about a political spectrum. And when they read the news or watch the news, they need to understand conservative and liberal ideas. And I recently read an article from NPR that the American College of Physicians is requesting that the government set limits on the price of prescriptions because of the rising costs, and especially where we are, having Medicaid area, Forest County in Oklahoma. Do you think the government should get involved and set limits there?
I think Gator County stole that title from you guys this year.
Okay, sorry. Dang it.
I'm not proud of that.
Do you think the government should get involved? Is that more political involvement? Where do you sit on that
No.
as far as ideology?
The best way to control costs is allow entrepreneurs and private industry to compete with each other. Period. Every time the government has gotten involved in stuff, they screw it up. The only reason why I stand in front of you today is because the federal government kept diving deeper and deeper and deeper into my company. I would have never got involved in politics, probably. I don't know. I would have hoped I would, but all I was a voter. I wasn't someone that just showed up to these meetings and stuff. The first political event I ever went to was when I stood up and said that I was running for Congress. That's the first time I ever went to a political event. I'm not saying I'm proud of that. I'm just saying what forced me to do that was that the federal government got more and more involved in our business. We're seeing inflation take place, not necessarily because our economy is driving it that way. It's because the high cost is the cost of doing business. Is it because of the competitors out there? Is it because of the products that we're producing? No. It's because it costs more and more to comply. Every time a state and federal mandate and regulation comes in, we have to offset that, therefore it gets pushed down to the consumer. It costs millions and a lot of times billions of dollars to bring a drug to the market. Years and years and years to be able to get it approved by FDA. In Europe, they do it in about half the time that we do. About half. And then we can't even use their clinical studies for our purpose, yet it's still with the same person. I mean, they still bleed red, right? But yet we can't take any of that into consideration, and we've been trying to make reforms to the FDA, and that's for the best price, lowering cost. We still want to be safe to the public. We still want to bring prescriptions to the public, but allow the private industry to be able to speed up the process, to be able to take it with the clinical studies that they can be used and be proven, even in some other areas, bring it there and allow the cost to come down to what it costs to bring to the market. I mean, when you're talking about billions of dollars and years of clinical studies, how else are they going to recoup that cost? They're in business too. They've got to recoup the cost somehow. They're going to pass it on down to you. Once again, the biggest hindrance we have is the federal government being involved. Remove some of that, still protect the health and safety of the American people. We can do that without the duplications that these agencies have to go through over and over again. The biggest thing that I'm spending time with this year, last year it was all about oil and gas and lifting the export ban. I spent over 12 months working on getting that done. And it wasn't just me, it was a whole group of us working on it. This year, the biggest thing that takes front and center is our health care with the emphasis on prescription costs. Why? Because that is affecting our district more than just about any other district in the country. Why is that? Because we have a high senior population. And so we're going to have to figure this out, and I can tell you the biggest conclusion is we need to ratchet back some of the federal government reach into the prescription industry. That's good. Yes, sir. Hold on.
I
Yeah.
have a question real quick, and it kind of goes off of Patty and the Square Rocks.
Got it. I'm coming back to you, so you better hurry.
Because we have, and you being from Adair County, and being in the Cherokee Nation, and us being in Pushmataha County, and being in the Choctaw Nation, and we have a lot of Indian healthcare. So, there are free services, free healthcare services for that. And we have those constituents that are being penalized, because they are receiving the free Indian health care, that they're not taking out the affordable health care because they can't afford to. And they're single parents, and they're senior citizens, they can't afford that. And I have a friend, her mother was through a double mastectomy, and she could not afford to have affordable health care, but she's Indian. And they're like, Indian healthcare will pick it up, but, you're gonna get penalized at the end of the tax year because you did not have affordable, you didn't have your insurance. So how does that, they say that Indian Health Services counts as insurance, but then you're getting penalized.
So there's been a lot of confusion on that, and we're still trying to get it out because
Okay.
Indian Health Services, they do qualify as long as that the Indian Health Service will allow them to get care outside of their network.
Okay.
So if you got a Cherokee Nation card or Choctaw or Chickasaw or Creek or whoever it is,
Right.
and you're traveling and you're in Washington D.C. and you go into emergency room, there has to be a paying mechanism for you to be covered even if you go in there. So it's out of network, which that's what it's considered. There's been a lot of confusion on that because not all tribes qualify for that because they don't have that in place. A lot of them do. But still what they're trying to do though is tax you as an individual, and that's where a lot of confusion is by being penalized for having health care they're trying to make you use that as a benefit and charge it to you as a tax for income. Because it is a benefit. So now where it hasn't been taxed, it hasn't been considered income, now there's confusion to this. There's a lot of clarification that has to be put up, but that's what they're trying to do to raise, once again, to pay for Obamacare. That's one of those things that was slid into the bill that most individuals that voted for it didn't even have time to read, right? So that's one of the reasons why that there's some confusion. And not all that's factual, but we are trying to figure out the weeds and get the information exactly what the intent of the IRS is here. And the intent of the IRS is all over the place.
Thank you.
I'll give you just a second. Yes, sir. Introduce yourself.
I'm Brent, I've been in sixth grade with friends. And all the terrorist attacks that happen in Europe, are we trying to make any laws or trying to get some laws started to try to prevent ourselves from those?
There's a lot of laws that are on the books. What we're trying to do is keep from us having an open border and allow the president from allowing the refugees to come in to the United States. And so there's a couple things that happened on the Omni bill, and one was in place, one wasn't in place, and we had to put in place for the Omni bill. One thing about the visa waiver program. Right now, if you come from Europe, we basically waive you. You can come in and out, like we can go to Europe and they can come here without a visa. But there was a lot of individuals that was coming from hostile areas, going to Europe and then coming to here. And so one thing that we did was we said, okay, wait a second. If you visited countries that are hotbeds for terrorist activity, then you cannot just enter in without a visa here. We have to clear you. The FBI, the intelligence agency, and the Department of Homeland Security all have to clear you. With the refugees, it's also the same thing. The refugees now have in place, before they can just come into the United States, and there's certain circumstances that can allow them to go around this, which have already been in place. But just the refugees that are coming, that you're seeing the floods going into the countries over in Europe, before they get here, the FBI, intelligence agency, and the Department of Homeland Security has to clear them, and that's an 18 to 24-month process. So it slows down, and the Republicans put this in place, that it slows down the process. That doesn't mean no one will be able to slip through, but it slows down the process greatly so we can more identify who it is. Now, you've heard a lot of talk about Oklahoma having thousands of refugees. You may not have heard that, but it's been reported that way. The fact is, on this, I spoke with Governor Fallon personally on this. The last time we spoke, there was only 3 total inside the Oklahoma. Those 3 came in to reunite with a family member that was already here. Direct family member, not a cousin, but like a husband, wife, and kids. Whereas the husband was here, and the wife and the kids came over and reunited them, and that wasn't even after this year. That happened way back. So there's been a lot of misinformation out there about it, but we're doing everything we can to try to stem the influx of refugees that we're afraid won't have our interests in mind. The intelligence service, the intelligence community out there has done a really good job at trying to prevent that from happening. The only reason why we haven't had another 9/11 is because our intelligence community has done a phenomenal job. But I think, unfortunately, everybody in this room, unfortunately, would say that it's not a matter of if, it's more of a matter of when, because they're at war with us. And our president hasn't identified that. And we're not putting them on the defense like we need to. The best way to prevent something from happening is to be able to push them and go on that offense and put them on defense. And until we become more proactive in this, we're going to have to rely more and more on our intelligence community to make sure it doesn't happen. Yes?
You and I agree on the health care. Other than that, where are you
We
working?
agree on a lot of stuff, be honest.
We really do. Other than that, where are you working right now for our government that's spending and be able to pay our debts back?
Well, it's difficult. Every opportunity we can, we have to make sure that we're trying to cut. But let's look at what's going on right now around the world. we have to continue to be the world powerhouse. In order to do that, we got to have a strong military. Strength comes from what? Power. If you want to be strong, you lift weights. If you want to have influence, you have a strong military. We're spending a tremendous amount, and the president is continuously trying to cut our military. We're having to continue to prop it up. We have a little thing called sequestration, which puts automatic cuts into place. The problem is the biggest cuts that take place is in the Department of Defense. We have cut deficit spending by roughly $1 trillion since I first started running for office. We were spending roughly $1.5 trillion in deficit spending. We're down to below $500 billion now. That's still too much. But what we're going to have to get into is there's two ways of funding. There's discretionary spending, which is about this much, and then you have mandatory spending, which controls almost 2/3 of our budget. Go back roughly 20 years ago, and it was just the opposite. Discretionary spending was 2/3, mandatory spending was only 1/3. Because of all the social programs that have been drastically inflated underneath Obama, we've seen that come completely out of control. And anytime you try to get into discretion or get out of discretionary spending and go into mandatory spending, it gets very difficult. I know I'm getting in the weeds here, but we've got to have reforms now into mandatory, which is your Social Security, which is your Medicare, which is a lot of the entitlement programs that we have out there, a lot of the funding that everybody's okay with cutting someone, but don't touch me type funding. And until we get real reforms to that, it's going to be extremely difficult to actually balance our budget. In order for that to take place, we in Congress have done a really good job cutting deficit spending. But mandatory spending is where it gets extremely political. And it's going to take someone, a president, a leader, to come in and work with Congress and say, let's leave politics to the side. Let's not blame the Democrats, not blame the Republicans, but leave it aside and do what's best for the country. Now, let's use two examples on this. Bill Clinton, I'm not a fan of, but Bill Clinton, the last time our budget was balanced, he balanced it, I don't want to say he, but Congress balanced it, which was a Republican Congress with a Democrat president. The last real reforms we had to Social Security was underneath Clinton. Now, Clinton vetoed it twice and signed it the third time. And he takes credit for it still to this day. But it was two parties working together. Right?
That's right.
Now, somebody that people always talk about, especially right now in politics, is being a Reagan conservative. Let's break that down. Reagan worked with who every day? Tip O'Neill. Tip O'Neill at that time was considered, now he'd be a blue dog Democrat probably, but he was considered the most liberal Democrat at the time. And people talk about being a Reagan conservative. Reagan was able to work with the opposition to do what's best for this country. The real spending now, you have to get into 2/3 of it. And if you're going to ratchet back and balance our budget and get us paying down this debt, which will probably never happen in my lifetime, we're going to have a true leader willing to sit there and talk and forget about what is best for his party, but make tough decisions, which goes back to your question, make tough decisions that may not always be the most political, easy decision to make, but for the future generations, it's the best one. That's the only way it's going to happen. There's no other way for it. You cannot balance it off of just discretionary spending. The discretionary spending is the one that everybody talks about. That's that budget number, the $1.07 trillion that everybody's talking about right now. There's another $3 trillion sitting over here that we haven't even discussed. Why? Because it's a political hot button. And it's a political year and no one wants to touch it. That's where you go back to saying, if this is the best job you ever had, and your identity is defined by a member of Congress, and it's your career, you're in the wrong position.
Some of the candidates running for office say they would get rid of the IRS, EPA, DEQ. Is that realistic?
I'd like to get rid of it.
I'd like to, okay, is it realistic?
It is realistic, But it's because, it's only gonna work if you go back to being able to push those regulations back down to the state. Sounds great. But think about if you push all those regulations back down to the state of Oklahoma right now, in the financial bind we're in. Could the state absorb it? Now let's talk about the big picture. Right now, no. So could you just eliminate them today? No. Could you phase them out? Yes. Now it's great to talk about, I'm going to eliminate them. But who's going to pay for it? Because not all the stuff that they do has to be done. Don't get me wrong, they've stepped way too far. But some of what they do does need to be done. Some. Very little, but a little bit of it. Now a lot of the agencies can go away. But like the IRS. Talking about abolishing the IRS. I agree with that. But there still has to be someone that receives revenue.
Right.
It still has to be there. So you can rename it whatever you want, but really what you're going to do is redefine them. And so you can talk about the fair tax, flat tax, 999, whatever plan you want. Everybody in this room would agree. You guys probably wouldn't because you're not dove into it far enough yet. But one day you'll understand what FICA is. You want to kill the person, and when you come to find out FICA is government. So we'll talk about that later when you guys get older. But you'll realize that you can talk about whatever you want, but all of us will agree that something needs to be done with the IRS. Something needs to be done. We need to redo it. It's very difficult to understand. But really, the biggest thing that's hurting our the economy, from a business owner. I employ a lot of people. I can budget for my taxes. I can't budget for what the EPA and the Department of Labor and the Department of Energy and all these regulatory agencies do to me. But we got to do something. But to just cut them off, the ripple effect will be huge. I'd love to do it, but the states have to be prepared to take that because it specifically says the states aren't willing to regulate themselves, then the federal government will do it. The federal government is overreached, so we're going to have to push that back down. The government and the states have been used to giving it away. But so it's easy to say it, but when you really take a look at it, how do we accomplish it? You do it by continuing to chip at it from the outside and work it into a point that you make them irrelevant. When you make them irrelevant, once again, then we can survive. Our country survived for years and years and years without them. We can survive again without them. We just allow them to take on too much responsibility, and we can phase them out over years. And that's really what needs to happen. We need to phase them out and get rid of them, rather than just saying, I'm going to abolish them. Yes, sir.
Is it that our state isn't willing to govern those issues, or is it that our state cannot afford to govern those issues? It's a two-part question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If they can't afford to govern those issues, then what can be done from a national government level to a state government level to help them fund being able to regulate that on their own?
So I'll do it backwards. If you want the federal government to fund it, then the federal government has strings attached to it. There's no such thing as free dollars from the federal government. They've all got requirements. If they're going to require it, then they're going to oversee it. If they're going to oversee it, they're going to regulate it. So therefore, they take control of it. That's how we lost control of the regulatory body to begin with and allowed them inside the agencies, because the federal government was asked by the states, give us money. Well, someone has to be accountable for the taxpayers. There's state taxes, there's federal taxes. When federal taxes come back to the state, which to me we send way too much money up there to begin with, we've got to keep it here. Anytime it comes back, someone's going to oversee it. Are you following me on that one?
I'm with you.
So my solution would be, yes, there's agencies already able to do it. For instance, let's talk about the EPA since that's a hot topic. The EPA is a federal environment protection agency. The state has Department of Environmental Quality, DEQ. I worked with both. I would rather work with DEQ. I used to despise DEQ. Now I think, wow, I didn't know how well I had it. So if the DEQ asks the federal government for assistance, then the EPA becomes relevant again. The best thing to do is keep more dollars inside the state and not have to ask the federal government to fund it. If you want to see where the most building is going on, go to Washington, D.C. You'll see more building cranes in the air, and by standing on a building and just looking at the horizon, you will probably, I don't know this for a fact, but probably every city or any city around the United States. I don't know that for a fact, but I'd be willing to say that's probably pretty accurate. So, if the federal dollars are going to Washington, D.C. and be getting stuck there, then why are we even sending it there to begin with? I tell people we don't have a revenue problem in Washington, D.C. We have a priority problem. And that's what has to be changed. We got to restructure our priority, and that's going to take a leader to be able to come in and make decisions, because any decision you make that's got federal dollars connected to it is going to affect someone. Guaranteed. There's no way. It's going to, in fact, statistically speaking, if you want to take everybody in this room, half of everybody in this room, your family, maybe not you, but your family, means someone in your family receives some type of federal or state assistance. In our county, in our district, it's actually higher than that. So think about starting to make those decisions. When you make those decisions, affecting somebody. But those are the type of decisions that a leader has to be willing to make, because it's about sustainability and not today, it's about future generations. Yes, ma'am.
What's a big concern right now?
By the way, kids, I'm coming back to you next, so whoever's next, be ready to comment on me.
And the Keystone Pipeline was talked about a lot the last couple of years. Where are we currently with Keystone Pipeline?
It's not moving anywhere, not until this president gets out of the house. The next president comes in, maybe, but it's not as big as a deal right now, because we have a tremendous amount of storage right now. I mean, we're at record levels of storage, crude oil storage. We're at record levels. In fact, we're running out of places to store it. Our refineries aren't, they don't need the product right now to refine. So even though it creates jobs, it's important to us. You'll talk to people in the oil and gas industry right now, we don't need it at this point, but we should still put it in there for a safety valve, because anything can change at any given time. And if it became a political hot button, obviously we already did the southern leg. What we need to be able to do is be able to do the northern leg too. So we're going to work on it, we're going to get it, but it won't be accomplished where, oh, I see you're leaving.
They have to go get pies.
Okay, pies?
That's yours.
We should have done that here. Hold on, the kids got a question, somebody, please? Okay, think of one. Actually, I'm going to you, Dylan. You're next, okay? Then I'm going here. Yeah.
My question was involved with the, high mortgage, when we call high mortgage.
The CFPB?
Yes.
Right.
So I'm sitting in my little, going over here, and having turned down homes we've made for years and years and years. Because they can't pass this government so.
Absolutely.
And mind you that we've never made stuff on them, 99% of banks have never made stuff on them.
Mm.
Is there any relief inside from the small community bank as far as the qualified mortgage goes?
If it's not politically, I don't know how else to say the term, but it's not a political hot button. So it's not getting a lot of attention. I mean, if it was as easy to separate community banks from large banks, they would have probably done that in Dodd-Frank. It's difficult to do it. There's not any question that is hurting community banks.
What's the term of the consumer?
Right, it's hurting the consumer, which is the community bank, and that's what the community bank exists for. And the community bank was about relationships. You're not just a number, you're a relationship. Let me be able to understand who you are. Yes, I understand the uniqueness of your income, because not all the income is exactly be able to show to, because not a lot of people around here get weekly paychecks, but they get a monthly paycheck, or they get a biannual paycheck, or something like that. They sell wood, or they do a whole bunch of different stuff, but you know they're good for it because you know the name, you've done business with the family forever. And that was relationship banking. That was community banking. The way the federal government has done it, once again, getting involved in the federal government, and anytime the federal government gets involved in stuff to make it worse, is they try to make one size fit all and have all these regulations, and I know you know this, I'm just talking for everybody else that's not dived into the banking world as much as we probably are. So now you see, well, how do we fix this? What it's going to take, because it's not a political button right now, what it's going to take is legislation to be able to drop now, so when the next president comes in place, we're able to re-drop it with the new Congress and ratchet back some of the harmful things that are happening. I can tell you, you're not getting a whole lot of pushback on the Republican side and Democrat side on this. Community banks and credit unions, for one time, can actually agree on something. And they both agree this is hurting.
I'm sitting in my office and kind of looking down on a daily basis,
Yeah.
4 or 5 buy homes. And I think about this is happening all over America.
All over
How far is this holding our economy back?
It's holding it back in a major way because it's eliminating homeowners and putting them into an eternal line of renting. And only a few that are cash heavy can be able to honestly buy now, which is harmful to, and complete reverse to what we have always intended for it to be. So there's some hope down the road, but you're just not hearing a lot about it, but there's a lot of activity. The community banks and the credit unions have done really good at staying involved in Washington, D.C. Because if no one's telling your own story, which the ABA, American Banking Association, the community bankers, especially with Oklahoma, Roger Beveridge here, has done a phenomenal job. They're always in Washington, D.C., and even the credit unions are always in Washington, D.C., constantly telling their story. There's two ways for things to get done in D.C., unfortunately, when it becomes politically motivated, which means the news picks it up and someone wants to take credit for it, or the wheel just continues to squeak. And you guys have to stay involved, and we'll get this fixed eventually. But by then, hopefully it's not too late. Did I see a hand back here in the back? Yes.
Yeah, I'm with the Push for a Better America, the local Tea Party, and we have, Jaron Jackson came and spoke with us last night, and he asked if you would be willing to debate him, and we have a moderator live streaming. If you're willing to do it, we're willing to host it, accept questions from Twitter, Facebook.
I appreciate what you're saying, but this isn't what that meeting's for. We can discuss that at a different time. I appreciate what you're saying, but look, that's an opponent that, God bless him for willing to run, and I respect anybody that's willing to put on there, but this isn't the place to ask that question. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to avoid it, but this isn't the place for that. Dylan? Are you the only 8th grader here? You two are next, then. I'll give you out the book. Unless you just want to. You have a question already? Go ahead, Dylan. Connie, I do that all the time. Don't worry about it.
I was wondering, ways you feel that we
Right now, the entrepreneur isn't really in the mode of surviving or thriving or trying to survive. And now, Dylan, you asked a really good question. Seriously, off the top of your head, you asked a really good question. The biggest hindrances, as I said earlier, to me in business is the federal government. Now, get this. When I first started looking at this in 2011, I was spending roughly 40 cents on every single dollar that comes in my company to meet or comply with the state or federal mandate. I was challenged on this on CNBC. And I told the guy, I said, I tell you what, come to my office, my corporate office. We'll walk through the front door and we'll start looking at offices that do nothing but push paper to make sure we're compliant. And the first place we'll stop is at my payroll department. Now, if you come and you work for me, and I pay you $10 an hour, and you work 40 hours, simple math, stay with me on this one. How much would your paycheck be? Yes, I know you got nervous on that one, but you're correct. It would be $400. Your check, depending on your dependency, will be lucky if you get $350 of that. I'm going to match every dollar that you pay. And could be more depending on what my workers' comp costs me. So that $400 isn't just $400, that $400 will turn into $500, $600 for me. Now that's stuff that would go right back into the business. Not all business owners will do that, but an aggressive business owner is going to reinvest back into his business over and over and over again. That's called growth. If you're not investing in your business and you're just taking from your business will fail and die. Every business owner knows that. So if we're able to allow more dollars to stay in the local economy where we're doing business and stay in the business and allow me to invest, then you'll see the economy move. But when a business owner has to spend more time asking permission to do his job than to do his job, then the economy stagnates. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. Right?
Good question.
Very good. Yay! How about that?
How do you,
Ah, you gotta introduce yourself.
my name is Mullins,
Okay?
how do you
I'm optimistic. I'm always thinking there's gonna be a brighter future. No one tells me that it has to stay the same. No one. You cannot tell me that we can't improve. I don't want to hear that we're too far gone. I don't want to hear that America's seen their best days. Bull crap. Sorry, but that's just my feeling. I don't want that. We don't have a choice but to get this country in better condition than what we have right now, because my kids, I have 5, 11, 10, 7, and twin girls that are 5. They expect it to be better. My generation was handed a better country. We just have to make tough decisions, get the right people in office that's willing to make tough decisions. And sometimes a politician has to be willing to make tough decisions that could cost him his service, which is fine, which is why it's so vitally important that we don't have career politicians up there. We gotta have people that serve and live underneath the same rules that we're trying to pass on everybody else. What's that? You girls aren't off the hook. I'm coming back here. Just looking out the audience. Yes, I'll get to you in a second.
I'm asking a question I truly not going to answer, and I'm trying to get in my mind how it works through. If Nico Gomez, my local health care board, they're saying almost a 25% revenue increase in Medicaid payments in the hospital. Knowing that we have roughly half of the rural hospital in Oklahoma that are in medical bills, right? Would it not be beneficial for the insurance Oklahoma to take substantial Obamacare to receive federal funds in light of a 25% increase in revenue? That's a lot.
So,
And how's that affect with the federal level to the state level?
state is in dire straits and they're trying to do what they can. And every time that you're tasked with tough financial decisions. In business, that happens time to time. In our personal life, it happens time to time. When you do that, you start prioritizing stuff, right? All of us have to do that. You start looking at what has to be done and what gets to be done. Your wants and your needs. Right now, the state's trying to prioritize what they need. But putting us into the exchange, when you see portions of Obamacare and states bankrupting all the time because of their health exchange system that they have set up, isn't the answer right now. It's a cluster. It's a mess.
A great mess.
It-
25% decrease will close hospital.
And the majority of those are going to be in our district. I get that. I hear it. It makes me sick. But once again, that goes back to what I think the original intent of our president was, is to have a national government healthcare system, single payer or whatever it is. If they had to step in and bail people out, they also had to be in control of our system. And the biggest strain that's happened to our healthcare system is Obamacare. Now we had a direct storm that collided and caused a tornado with 2 different areas hitting each other, the downturn of the Oklahoma economy, and the increase of healthcare costs. At the same time, you're seeing Medicaid, because of Obamacare, greatly expand. In 2014, we saw Medicaid, which is state-ran, increased by 11%. In 2016, we're going to see an increase of an additional 16%. It's not sustainable at the growth. What is that direct cause from? It's the direct cause from people that can't afford the health insurance at the rate that this is, that's being pushed by Obamacare, which is the exchange. So the only thing you would see is a bigger push to Medicaid. The cuts still have to take place.
Yeah, and I think the voluntary support, but it's not my job to fight your family.
Right, I agree with that.
But,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out how we the revenue be consistent, you know?
Right.
But it should be on paper somewhere.
Put more people back to work, get our economy going again. That's the best way to put
I mean,
people in
the
the
local
system.
level, I mean, I'm the guy that outlawed cottonizing animals, so I'm making bad laws, so I understand bad laws too. So,
But he corrected.
I did correct. So,
I don't know if I would ever bring that back up in my view. But thank the Lord you,
we can have her cottonizing it.
yeah, thank the Lord you got to them. Thank you. Let me get to these questions that haven't, the people haven't had time to ask the question. I saw 3 hands come up here. So, let me get to the ones that haven't asked a question real quick. So if you haven't asked a question, I'll get to you. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Fire Clinic, VA,
Yes.
where is it?
The
What's
McCurtain.
current status of the VA clinic provided?
So I met with DepSec Gibson